Hello there, I'm the biblical translator, and today's scripture is about when solitude heals and when solitude harms. And we can relate to solitude today because from the very beginning of the Bible, we are shown that being alone is not a small issue. It is a human issue. In Genesis, God looks at Adam in the garden and says, "It is not good for man to be alone." That statement is striking because up until that moment, everything God created was called good. Light was good, the earth was good, the animals were good, but isolation was not good. That tells me that prolonged, unchosen loneliness cuts across how we were designed. We were made for relationship, for shared work, shared joy, shared burden. But then, as the story unfolds through Scripture, we also see something else. We see Moses alone in the wilderness before he leads Israel. We see Elijah alone under a broom tree, exhausted and overwhelmed. We see David alone in caves, hiding and praying. We see Jesus withdrawing to lonely places to pray. So solitude itself is not condemned. In fact, sometimes it is the very place where clarity, calling, and strength are formed. The Bible does not treat solitude as automatically good or automatically bad. It treats it as powerful, and like anything powerful, it can build you or break you, depending on what is happening inside. When solitude is chosen for the purpose of seeking God, it becomes refining. Jesus withdrawing from crowds was not escapism, it was alignment. He stepped away from the noise, from demands, from constant expectation to be grounded again in Father's will. In ordinary life, that translates into stepping back from constant output, constant conversation, constant distraction, so that your inner life can settle. Solitude, like that, restores perspective. It exposes your motives. It quiets the ego. It strengthens discernment. Many believers throughout history have understood this. Some have emphasized that stepping away regularly helps prevent the heart from being shaped more by public pressure than by divine guidance. When you're never alone, you can forget who you are before God. At the same time, another stream of Christian thought has warned that isolation can distort you if it becomes avoidance. Elijah's moment under the broom tree shows this clearly. He isolates himself because he feels defeated and afraid. In that solitude, his thinking becomes extreme. He says he is the only faithful one left. That was not true. His loneliness amplified his despair. God does meet him there, gently feeding him, resting him, correcting his perspective. But the story shows that when solitude is driven by fear, shame, or burnout, it can exaggerate lies in your mind. So the benefit of solitude is clarity. The danger of solitude is distortion. If we factor this into our daily lives, we can see how easy it is to slide from healthy withdrawal into emotional withdrawal. There is a difference between taking time alone to process and shutting people out because you feel hurt or misunderstood. One strengthens you, the other slowly hardens you. The early church also models balance. After Pentecost, believers gathered together, After Pentecost, believers gather together, break bread together, pray together. Community is presented as protection. They confess sin to one another. They carry one another's burdens. This reflects the truth that we are formed in relationship. Accountability keeps pride in check. Encouragement keeps despair from swallowing us. If you live entirely alone in your own thoughts, you become your own echo chamber. Yet even with that community life, prayer remains personal. Jesus teaches that when you pray, go into your room and close the door. That image suggests intimacy and honesty. In solitude, you cannot perform. There is no audience. It is just you and God. That kind of aloneness strips pretense. It forces self-examination. You see your envy, your anger, your fear without distraction. You can feel uncomfortable, but it is deeply cleansing if you are willing to be truthful. There's also behavioral principle. There's also a behavioral principle running underneath these stories. Solitude reveals what you are attached to. When external affirmation is removed, do you still know who you are? When conversation stops, do you feel peace or panic? When you are not needed, do you still feel valuable? Scripture keeps pushing us back to identity, rooted in God rather than in constant human interaction. That is stabilizing. It means solitude does not threaten your worth. But Scripture also guards against prideful independence. Paul describes the church as a body with many parts. No part can say it does not need the others. Radical self-sufficiency is not celebrated. We are interdependent by design. Refusing help, refusing vulnerability, insisting you can do life alone, that is not strength in biblical terms. It is often fear disguised as competence. From my own discernment, I would say this: solitude is like a mirror. If you enter it groundly, it sharpens you. If you enter it wounded and defensive, it can deepen the grooves that are already unhealthy. That is why intention matters. Am I stepping away to listen and realign? Or am I stepping away to punish, avoid, or protect myself from discomfort? In practical terms, healthy solitude might look like setting aside time without devices, without constant messaging, and asking honest questions before God. What is driving me right now? Where am I reacting instead of responding? Where have I drifted? It might mean journaling, praying, or simply sitting quietly long enough to hear your mind slow down. It is not dramatic, it's just steady. Unhealthy isolation often looks different. It shows up as withdrawing from wise voices when you most need correction. It shows up as assuming people will not understand you, so you stop explaining yourself. It shows up as nursing grievances alone instead of addressing them. Over time, that kind of solitude narrows your world. You become less flexible, less compassionate, more suspicious. That is not spiritual maturity. It is relational atrophy. The story of Adam reminds us that companionship is not luxury. It is a part of our created structure. The example of Jesus reminds us that solitude is not neglect. It is necessary renewal. The wisdom is in knowing when each is required. There are seasons when we will need to step back from crowds to regain spiritual and emotional footing. There are seasons when you must step forward towards community, even when you would rather retreat. Maturity is recognizing which season you're in. If solitude is drawing you closer to the truth, softening your heart, increasing your patience, and strengthening your clarity, it is serving its purpose. If it is making you more brittle, more cynical, more self-protective, then it's time to reconnect. The Bible does not romanticize loneliness, and it does not idolize busyness. It shows a rhythm: work and rest, community and privacy, speaking and listening. The rhythm protects the soul. So when I think about solitude, I do not ask whether it is good or bad in itself. I ask, what is it producing? Because in Scripture, fruit tells the story. If the fruit is love, patience, humility, and steadiness, then solitude has been on holy ground. If the fruit is resentment, pride, and despair, then something inside that quiet space needs attention. We were made to walk with God and with one another. Neglect either, and life still tilts out of balance. Hold both, and solitude becomes not a threat, but a tool. I'll read that again. We were made to walk with God and with one another. Neglect either, and life tilts out of balance. Hold them both, and solitude becomes not a threat, but a tool. Primary scriptures are Genesis 2:18, Kings 19, Psalm 57, Mark 35, and Matthew 6. Acts 2,